Alright, it's time to raise the flag once again, this time for Tasuku and Jackknife. So let's begin. So here's the starter. Once again, it is Dragon World, in which we go to the grade 1 Wiki Power, Buddy Police Boy Tasuku Ryuenji, which has a skill Auto. When placed by riding on top of the Dragon World, look at top 7 cards of your deck to choose up to one Jackknife from among them, reveal it and put it in your hand before shuffle your deck. Typical grade 1 ride line search. In which we go to the grade 2 with 10 Wiki Power, Genius Buddy Fighter Tasuku Ryuenji, which has a skill Auto. When rolled upon by the grade 3 Tasuku, cost Soul Blast 1, choose up to one card that is Jackknife from your drop zone and put it to your hand, so the card that you search just kind of becomes discard fodder. Nothing to say here as it's a ride line. In which we go to the Future Force Processor Tasuku Ryuenji, which is a grade 3 with 13 power, and the skill is count Vanguard. All your rear guards that are Jackknife get plus 5 key power and is active on your opponent's turn as well. This makes sense since Tasuku and Jackknife are basically best buds and he requires Jackknife all the time. In which we get the second skill of Auto Vanguard. When this card attacks, if it's the first attack that this unit performed, cost counterblast 1, choose one of your rear guards that are Jackknife and stand it. So basically you already have 4 attacks just with this, in which we get the last skill of Jackknife Braveheart, which is the skill name. Act Vanguard once per turn, cost pay 1 gauge, search your deck or drop zone for one Jackknife unit, and either put it to your hand or call it to rear guard without paying the costs. And of course, if you search your deck, shuffle it. This is just pretty good to constantly get you your resources of having Jackknife on the field, especially the base form Jackknife, because the base form Jackknife is the starting point. And just like Gao, you cannot go out without the buddy. Although I do find it strange that this one doesn't have the link attack part, but then again, Tasuku does not play with link attacks too often. And now it's time to buddy call Jackknife Dragon, which is the grade 2 with 10 power, and you call cost with 1 gauge, which has a skill and its only skill of act rear guard, cost pay 1 gauge, search your deck or drop zone for one Jackknife and call it on top of this unit without paying the call costs. And of course, if you use your deck, you have to shuffle it. Of course, this will become the soul for the new Jackknife, which is here to replicate its original playstyle, because Jackknife is actually kind of like changing forms all the time. In fact, it's basically like OverDress before OverDress existed, in which we change them into Jackknife Thunderstorm, which is a grade 2 with 10 power, and the skill is call cost pay 1 gauge and calling it on top of Jackknife. And then the main skill is act rear guard once per turn, cost pay 1 gauge, choose one of your opponent's front row rear guards and retire it. And if your Vanguard is armed with Gold Raider, plus 10k into the end of turn, just to replicate its destructive skill from the original, although it would have been funny if you had to pay life instead. But in Vanguard, you don't really want to do that, but it would just been funny to see it. And it also has Soul Guard. Nothing much to say here, it's just removal for Jackknife. Although I think it would have been cooler if it's not once per turn, just like the original one, just saying. And then we go to Jackknife Dispersal, which is a grade 2 with 10 power, and the skill is the call cost, pay 1 gauge and calling it on top of the Jackknife. And it also has a Soul Guard, which the main skill is count rear guard. When this unit has a buddy soul of Jackknife, this card gives us 5k power, active on your opponent's turn as well. With the second skill, Auto Rear Guard, when this unit stands by your at least grade 3 Vanguard Tasuku, crit plus 1 in the end turn. And if your Vanguard is armed with Gold Raider, plus another 5k as well into the end turn. Extra power with some extra crit pressure on a rear guard. Pretty nice, especially since Tasuku could actually stand this. And then we go to Jackknife Burn Energy, which is a grade 2 with 10k power, and the call cost is calling it on top of the Jackknife. With the skill of Auto, when placed on rear guard, costs counterblast 1, draw a card, and then put the top card of your deck face down as gauge. And then choose a card from your drop zone and put it as gauge. And your Vanguard is at least Tasuku, plus 5k in the end turn. Basically, it's just your gauge charge here, which is pretty helpful. And finally, the Soul Guard ability, in which now we equip the ultimate Jackknife, Jackknife Gold Raider, which is a normal order item, and you arm it to your at least grade 3 Tasuku. And of course, you can only have one item on your Vanguard. You cannot play this card at all. How you play it is act hand. If you have at least a grade 3 Vanguard Tasuku and your opponent's Vanguard is at least grade 3, cost retire one of your Jackknife rear guards that has 2 or more buddy souls, hence why Jackknife wants to be changing forms, to arm this to your Vanguard. With the second skill, count Vanguard, your Vanguard cannot be chosen by your opponent's card abilities, and original power becomes 20,000 with triple drive, active on your opponent's turn as well. And you thought Majesty Lord base power would be high, well, this one just surpassed it with 20,000. And of course, this is a reference to the original where it had high defense. But not only that, making your Vanguard triple drive for the rest of the game is actually pretty powerful, in which the last skill is Auto Vanguard. At the end of this armed unit attacked, if it's the first attack from that unit, stand that unit and change its drive check to 0 into the end turn, because the original Gold Raider had double attack, hence why you get a free restand even if it's 0 drive. Basically, it's a better version version of Varga because this is just absolutely free. And keep in mind, you're at 20k base power, so if you Persona ride, you're gonna be 30k for the turn. The only hard part about this card is really just the condition to use it. But considering that Tasuku kind of just gets you your Jackknife anyway, and can even revive the Jackknife, making it its main rear guard, which is kind of weird to me because in the anime, this card completely becomes Jackknife, so Jackknife is not on the rear guard. So it is kind of funny to see the item along with a rear guard version as an assist Jackknife. Now it did lose few things from the original, like 1, the high crit count, and 2, you have to be at low life, or in this case high damage, for you to play it. Which I guess for balancing purposes they kind of got rid of the high damage condition and traded the high crit for a full-on restand with 0 drives. But still overall pretty cool to see this again. And then we go to Chibi Jackknife of Jackknife Dragon Baby, which is a grade 1 with power, and the skill is auto drop. When your rear guard with Jackknife is placed with a different card name, cost Soul Blast 1, call this to rear guard in the same column as that unit, which is quite helpful for just boosting, so you just have to run this. And you don't even use Soul anyway. And then there's Jackknife Gift, which is grade 2 normal order, which is also a spell, and you play it your Vanguard's Tasuku to perform one of the following. Choose one of your units with Jackknife from your drop zone and put it into the buddy's soul of your Jackknife rear guard, and if you do this, search your deck or drop zone for Jackknife Gold Raider, reveal it, put it in your hand. Of course, if you search your deck, shuffle it. With the second section, if your Vanguard is armed with Jackknife Gold Raider, draw a card, and then put this card face down as gauge. It's an assist spell that is just very helpful, so just run it. And now it's time for final phase, Dragonic Punisher, which is of course a normal order impact, cannot be played, and can only use the ability if you do not play an impact order during the fight. So the skill is auto hand at the end of the turn. If your rear guard is Jackknife, cost Combos 1, discard this card, and pay 2 gauges, of course say final phase, and then choose one of your rear guards that is Jackknife and stand it, and attack your opponent's Vanguard with it. Too bad it can't be Gold Raider because that would have been awesome, but it is for 1 additional attack, so it's not bad. But once again, it's an impact order that doesn't really kill its opponent in Vanguard. And so that's it for these reveals of the new Jackknife and Tasuku ride line. What do you guys think of it? Overall, pretty awesome that they replicated the original playstyle of Jackknife. Basically, Jackknife was original OverDress before OverDress existed, and I'm glad that they brought back Gold Raider in pretty much everything in the same glory as it was back in Buddy Fight. But the only weird thing to me when it came to this ride line is Jackknife as a rear guard while you have Gold Raider as the Vanguard. Of course, that won't be anime accurate, but it is kind of weird to me, but cool at the same time, because at least that you can still use your Jackknife rear guard with Tasuku. But on that, that's it for this, and see you all next time.